My name is Laura and I'm 44 years old. Never in my life did I expect to find myself in the situation I'm about to share. This story is unlike anything you've heard before, and I encourage you to stay until the end because there's a surprise waiting for you. Let's begin. From the outside, my life seemed picture perfect. My husband Daniel was a well-respected architect, known for his impressive projects and unwavering dedication to his work. We had been married for 20 years, and to everyone else, we were the ideal couple. But behind closed doors, things were different. Over the years, Daniel had become more and more engrossed in his career, and our connection had faded. Our conversations revolved around daily routines and responsibilities, and I found myself feeling lonelier than ever, longing for the passion we once had. Then came Ryan. He was 27, fresh out of law school, and had come to stay with us for a few months while settling into his new job in the city. He was my husband's cousin, quiet and introspective, yet with a depth that fascinated me. Unlike Daniel, Ryan had a way of listening that made me feel truly heard. Each conversation with him reignited a part of me I thought had long disappeared. Around the same time, Daniel's friend's son, Leo, arrived to stay with us temporarily. Leo was 24, only a few years younger than Ryan, but his personality was completely different. He was confident, humorous, and uninhibited, always cracking jokes and bringing a playful energy into the house. His carefree attitude made me laugh in a way I hadn't in years. One evening, while Daniel was away on a work trip, the three of us sat in the living room after dinner, sipping wine and talking. Leo animatedly recounted childhood stories, playfully teasing Ryan. Then, out of nowhere, he turned to me and said, "Laura, I had no idea you were such a great conversationalist. Talking to you feels so easy and comforting." His words sent a warmth through me that I hadn't felt in a long time. As the night continued, our conversation grew deeper. Ryan opened up about his struggles and past mistakes, confessing that he had always yearned for someone who truly understood him. When his eyes met mine, I felt an undeniable flutter in my chest. In the days that followed, I found myself naturally drawn to both Ryan and Leo. Ryan's thoughtful nature made me feel safe and understood, while Leo's energy and playfulness made me feel alive and youthful again. It was a strange and conflicting feeling. I wasn't supposed to feel this way, but I couldn't deny that their presence filled a void I had been ignoring for years. One afternoon, while Leo was making lunch, our hands accidentally brushed as we reached for the same dish. Our eyes met, and for a moment, time seemed to stop. The air between us was thick with tension. Similarly, on another occasion, while Ryan and I were sitting on the patio alone, he looked at me in a way that made my heart pound. There was something unspoken between us, something neither of us was ready to admit. With each passing day, my emotions became more tangled. I felt like I was being pulled in two directions, toward Ryan's quiet intensity and Leo's fiery passion. With them, I felt more like myself than I had in years, but I also knew that this wasn't right. The rational part of me told me to put a stop to it, but my heart longed for something more. One sunny afternoon, while Daniel was still away, Leo suggested a small barbecue in the backyard. As we grilled and laughed, Ryan joined us, adding his usual thoughtful insights to the conversation. It was the perfect blend of lighthearted fun and deep connection. For the first time in years, I felt completely at ease. And that's when I realized it. Both of them awakened something in me. With Ryan, I found an emotional connection that made me feel valued and seen. He reminded me of the person I had lost in the monotony of my marriage. With Leo, I felt excitement and joy, a reminder of the younger, freer version of myself. As the sun set that evening, I sat quietly, alone in the living room with the two of them, sipping my wine, watching them laugh and talk, unaware of the storm of emotions raging inside me. I had no idea where these connections would lead, but one thing was certain. I could never go back to being the woman I was before they arrived. I knew I couldn't hide my feelings anymore. The atmosphere was warm, and the tension that had been building between us for days was impossible to ignore. Taking a deep breath, I gathered the courage to speak. "I need to confess something," I began, my voice trembling slightly. Ryan and Leo both looked at me, their expressions shifting as they sensed the seriousness in my tone. My heart pounded in my chest. What I'm about to say may surprise you, but every moment I spend with you both makes me feel reborn. Ryan, talking to you gives me a sense of deep peace, like I can finally breathe again. Leo, you remind me how to live life to the fullest. The truth is, I want to be with both of you. A heavy silence followed my confession. My eyes darted between them, searching for a reaction, while I fought to suppress the nervous energy swirling inside me. Ryan finally exhaled deeply and, in his quiet, thoughtful manner, said, "I'm not sure how this will affect us, but to be honest, I feel the same way." Leo, ever the carefree spirit, grinned. "Life is lived once, right? Maybe we need to step outside of some rules." His words sent a wave of relief through me. There was nothing left to hide. That night marked the beginning of something new, something unknown. I didn't know where this would lead, but one thing was certain. I could never go back to my old life. The bond I had formed with Ryan and Leo made me feel stronger than ever before. That evening, we sat together in the living room, opening bottles of wine. Daniel was away on another business trip, and after days of growing tension, sharing a few drinks felt like the perfect way to unwind. As we filled our glasses, Leo put on some music, the melody echoing softly through the room, warming the air between us. At first, our conversation remained light. We talked about our dreams, our pasts, our futures, but as the wine flowed, our words took on a deeper tone. Leo turned to me, his voice softer than usual. "Laura, talking to you is always captivating. It's like time stops when I'm with you." His words sent a rush of heat through me. My pulse quickened. Before I could respond, Ryan nodded in agreement. "He's right. I always feel at peace around you, like all the weight of the past disappears." There was something raw and sincere in his eyes, and in that moment, I felt the connection between the three of us intensify. The unspoken emotions, the magnetic pull between us. It was undeniable. After a while, Leo stood up suddenly, grinning as he turned up the music. "We've had enough serious talk. We need to dance." He extended a hand toward me, his eyes gleaming with playful excitement. I hesitated for just a second before smiling and slipping my hand into his. He pulled me up and we began moving to the rhythm. His relaxed, spontaneous energy made me laugh, but at the same time, his touch ignited something inside me that I hadn't felt in years. As we swayed together, Ryan watched us from the couch, his gaze steady, unreadable. After a moment, he stood and slowly made his way toward us. "You can't forget about me while having so much fun," he murmured, placing a gentle but firm hand on my waist. He guided me toward him, and suddenly I found myself dancing between them. Between the two men, every movement felt like a game, a delicate balance between control and surrender. Leo's hands held mine with an effortless confidence, while Ryan's touch was softer but just as powerful. The warmth of their presence, the way they each made me feel in such different yet equally intoxicating ways, left me breathless. In that moment, I knew I had stepped into something I could never turn away from. The night was only just beginning, and with it, so was an entirely new chapter of my life. The emotions I had been holding inside for so long surfaced, overwhelming me. As the dance slowed, Ryan leaned in close, his gaze locking onto mine. The intensity in his eyes captivated me, making it impossible to look away. At the same time, Leo stood behind me, his breath warm against my neck, sending shivers down my spine. Between the three of us, a closeness had formed, one that words couldn't fully capture. The rhythm of the song echoed softly in the living room, our movements becoming slower, more deliberate. Ryan gently ran his fingers through my hair, his touch tender and reassuring. Leo's hand slid to my waist, pulling me toward him with a careful yet confident grip. The intensity of the moment was beyond description. It felt as though we had all slipped into another world, disconnected from time and space. The lingering effect of the wine made our glances bolder, our touches more daring. Ryan, after a brief pause, slowly took my hand and brought it to his lips, his eyes never leaving mine. The gesture mesmerized me. Then Leo, his voice softer than usual, murmured, "Laura, I'll never forget this moment." That night, between lingering touches and knowing glances, the barriers between us dissolved. Every movement deepened the silent understanding we shared, a story unfolding in the darkness through the language of touch alone. As the wine glasses emptied, the atmosphere grew even more intimate. When the song finally came to an end, the only sound left in the room was the quiet rhythm of our breathing. The silence didn't separate us, it only intensified the unspoken connection we shared. Ryan, with a small, knowing smile, spoke first. "What makes this night special isn't just the wine," he said. The sincerity in his eyes made me realize, once again, that what I was feeling wasn't one-sided. There was something real here, something none of us could ignore. Leo moved toward the couch and patted the seat beside him. "Laura, I think we've needed a night like this for a long time," he admitted. "Honestly, every moment I spend with you reminds me how beautiful life can be." The seriousness in his voice was a stark contrast to his usual playful demeanor, revealing emotions he rarely let surface. I sat down and Ryan joined me immediately. The three of us sat together in comfortable silence, simply absorbing each other's presence. After a moment, Leo reached out, gently touching my face. "I don't understand how someone as incredible as you could ever feel lonely," he said. His words struck something deep within me, exposing a wound I hadn't fully acknowledged until now. Ryan shifted closer, his voice soft yet firm. "But you're not alone anymore. We're here." His words, so genuine and full of warmth, sent a rush of emotion through me. I fought back the tears welling in my eyes, overwhelmed by the sincerity in their presence. Ryan took my hand, his grip firm yet gentle, while Leo softly ran his fingers through my hair. This wasn't just about physical closeness. The connection between us was deeper, built on understanding, acceptance, and something more profound than I could explain. For the first time in years, I felt truly seen. After a while, Ryan let out a light laugh, breaking the quiet. "I think we need to open another bottle of wine to make this night unforgettable," he suggested playfully. Leo grinned. "No need for wine. I think we're already drunk enough." His teasing tone made us all laugh, but beneath his words we knew exactly what he meant. The warmth in the room had nothing to do with alcohol. It was something else entirely. As I leaned back against the couch, closing my eyes for a moment, I felt Leo's breath warm against my neck. At the same time, Ryan's fingers intertwined with mine, his touch confident yet reassuring. The combination of their presence, their touch, their energy, it all created an indescribable wave of happiness and excitement within me. I had no idea where this night would lead, but I knew one thing for certain. I was exactly where I was meant to be. That night, every movement, every glance between us spoke volumes, expressing the passion and connection we shared. I didn't know where this bond would lead, but in that moment, I surrendered completely to what I was feeling. For the first time in my life, I felt utterly free, yet more at home than I ever had before. The wine bottles were emptied, the music had faded into silence, but the intensity of our connection only deepened with every passing minute. After hours of conversation, laughter, and lingering touches, the three of us finally collapsed onto the couch. As I closed my eyes and tried to steady my breath, an indescribable peace settled within me. I had made the boldest decision of my life, yet I had never felt so fulfilled. The connection I shared with Ryan and Leo filled a space in me that had long been empty. I had never felt so free, so alive, and so in tune with my own desires. As the first light of morning crept into the room, Ryan and Leo were still fast asleep. I watched them, taking in the quiet rise and fall of their breath, and I felt no trace of regret. If anything, I was more certain than ever that this night had marked a turning point for me. It made me realize just how lonely I had been, how many dreams I had pushed aside, allowing them to fade into the background of my routine life. For the first time, I felt like I was truly myself. I whispered softly, "This night was just the beginning. The real story starts now." As I lay there, my thoughts drifted to Daniel's impending return. The special bond I had formed with Ryan and Leo swirled in my mind. Nothing would ever be the same again. The silence of the night was slowly giving way to dawn, yet the warmth in the room still lingered. Having Ryan and Leo by my side made me realize how much of my life had become monotonous, how much I had sacrificed without even noticing. But tonight it felt as though I had reclaimed something I thought was lost forever. Beside me, Leo stirred, his eyes fluttering open as he turned to look at me. A slow smile spread across his face. "Laura, this night was like a dream," he murmured. "But I don't think I want this dream to end." His words sent a spark through me, igniting something deep inside. Before I could respond, Ryan stirred as well. He moved closer, his hand resting lightly on my shoulder. "Leo's right," he said, his voice still husky from sleep. "This night was just the beginning. Seeing you like this, getting to know the real you, it's a privilege." His words, along with the warmth of his touch, sent my heart racing. The lingering effect of the wine, combined with the intimate atmosphere, had completely overwhelmed my emotions. The closeness we shared had reached a point of no return. Leo reached out, his fingers tracing the contours of my face as he gazed into my eyes. "Touching you, feeling you, this is one of the most beautiful experiences I've ever had," he whispered. Ryan stood behind him, his gaze locked onto mine. His deep, steady eyes and the faint smile on his lips told me everything I needed to know. The bond between us was growing even stronger. Leo took a step closer, running his fingers through my hair, while at the same time, Ryan's hand wandered along my back. In that moment, I surrendered completely to them, allowing myself to get lost in the intensity of their presence. The way they moved, the way they touched me, it all felt like a carefully choreographed dance, perfectly in sync. Each touch, each breath, each lingering moment only heightened the electric atmosphere between us. The soft glow of dawn reflected against the empty wine glasses, casting shadows across Ryan's hand on my waist and Leo's fingers on my face, making everything feel even more surreal. In those moments, the voice inside me whispered that this was one of the most unforgettable experiences of my life. The depth of our connection transcended the physical. It was built on something much stronger, something that neither of us could fully put into words. What followed that night was so profound, so intimate, that no words could truly capture it. Passion, love, and an unbreakable bond, all of it was expressed through the way we touched, the way we looked at each other, the way we moved together. Everything unfolded naturally, as if it had always been meant to be. For now, I want to end the story here. But know this, the continuation of this journey is even more beautiful, even more exhilarating. If you want to hear more about these special moments, make sure to subscribe. Blizzards don't just trap people. They trap emotions, thoughts, and choices you never imagined making. I learned that the hard way one freezing January evening at my grandfather's mountain lodge. Ethan, my fiance, was called away for an urgent business trip at the last minute, leaving me to check on the lodge alone before the incoming snowstorm. Alex, his stepbrother, offered to help, saying he could use some fresh air. I hadn't thought much of it at the time, but the storm arrived earlier than expected, and the snow piled up so fast that leaving became impossible. The lodge's old heating system struggled and eventually failed, leaving only a weak fire to sustain us. By nightfall, it was nearly as cold inside as it was outside. "We need to conserve heat," Alex said, his breath visible in the dim light. Reluctantly, we gathered blankets on the couch and sat close together. At first it felt awkward, too personal, but as the night stretched on, the freezing air made us forget the discomfort. The storm howled outside, the snow falling relentlessly, and the fire dimmed to embers. Alex stood to add more logs. "This should keep us warm for a little while," he said, glancing at me. "But we need to stay close for body heat." I hesitated, unsure of what to say. "You mean?" He shrugged, serious but understanding. "Just until the storm passes." I wanted to refuse, to insist we'd be fine, but the cold was undeniable and I knew he was right. "Okay," I said softly. Alex grabbed the thickest blankets he could find and draped them over the couch. I joined him, settling beside him with awkward hesitation. "Is this okay?" he asked carefully. I nodded, avoiding his gaze. "It's fine." At first, the closeness was unbearable, physically and emotionally. I was hyper-aware of every inch of space between us, but as the hours wore on, the biting cold forced us closer. Eventually, I stopped noticing the tension. "Better?" Alex asked softly, his breath visible in the dim firelight. "Yes," I replied, though my voice trembled. Silence settled between us, only broken by the howling wind outside. Finally, Alex spoke. "The storm is worse than I thought." I nodded. "I haven't seen one this bad in years." He leaned back, his expression thoughtful. "I used to love coming up here as a kid. My dad and I would stay for days, just the two of us." His mention of his father surprised me. Alex rarely talked about him. "You must have been close," I said. "Yeah," he replied, a small smile tugging at his lips. "He made this place feel like home." A pang of emotion hit me. I had tried to fill a similar role after getting engaged to Ethan, but I had always felt like an outsider. "I'm sorry if I haven't measured up," I said softly. Alex turned to me, confused. "What do you mean?" "I know I'm not part of your family the way your dad was," I stammered, "and I know having me in your life hasn't been easy." Alex stared at me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, without a word, he reached out and took my hand, squeezing it lightly. The simple gesture sent warmth through me, something deeper than body heat. "You don't have to try so hard," he said gently. "You already belong." Something shifted in that moment. Maybe it was the storm, the isolation, or just the raw honesty of the cold night. But as we sat together, wrapped in blankets against the freezing air, I realized that sometimes the strongest connections are forged in the harshest conditions, and sometimes the most unexpected moments reveal the truths we've been too afraid to face. He shook his head. "You've been good to me, Emily, better than I deserve." The sincerity in his voice made my breath catch. Time passed, and the fire continued to weaken. Alex shifted closer, pulling the blankets tighter around us. "Cold?" he asked. "I'm fine," I said, though my teeth chattered slightly. "Here," he said, wrapping his arm around me. At first I stiffened, but the warmth was undeniable. Slowly, I leaned into him as the cold retreated. "You're like a human heater," I joked, trying to ease the tension. He chuckled. "Guess I'm good for something." We sat in silence for a moment, the storm raging outside while the intimacy of the moment felt overwhelming. As the night wore on, I found myself growing more comfortable with Alex. and the barriers between us started to fall away. "Tell me something about yourself," he asked suddenly. I glanced up at him, surprised. "Like what?" "Anything," he said. "Something I don't know." I thought for a moment. "I used to want to be a painter," I admitted, "but life got in the way."